Some in Gaza were celebrating the ceasefire announcement last night. Others were being pulled from the rubble. These children, victims of an Israeli strike on a house in Gaza City. A young girl, Tala, calls out for her father. "I want my dad. I want my dad," she cries, her body struggling to process the pain and trauma of the attack. Her father is lying dead in the hospital bed next to her. War, he says. No one in the world has helped us. We just rely on God. How many more families will be torn apart before the ceasefire is due to begin on Sunday? Amidst the chaos, a small boy looks around, lost. Whose child is this? Someone asks. He's taken to his mother. His two sisters are dead.
We thought there would be a truce, that no one would have to leave their home, but today they attacked us again. Why? There's no one left in the area, only civilians.
Mahinaz and her family had only recently been discharged from the hospital after an earlier strike, when they were hit again. In the emergency room, a group of young siblings embrace. At least they found each other alive. Death and hope live side by side in Gaza. In Israel's hostage square, the mood is quiet. There are still concerns the deal could be derailed. It's been more than a year since the hostages were first taken captive. Their ages amended on posters. Amongst those held by Hamas, Nimrod Cohen. As a male soldier, he would not be released until the second phase of the deal, alongside a long-term ceasefire. His father, Yehuda, has been a vocal critic of the Israeli government. He believes a deal should have been done long ago.
Last 15 months were a nightmare. I mean, in the beginning, we were pretty much shocked. We didn't know pretty much what to do. My way of coping is to fight.
Now Yehuda fears the deal could end and war restart before his son is released.
Do you have faith in your government now?
No. No faith in my government, and that's why I said in the beginning, we are continuing to fight to make sure our government in general, and Netanyahu in particular, will be focused on continuing the deal and not to sabotage it.
Blocking a major highway in Jerusalem, radical right-wing demonstrators were tonight trying to do exactly that. Amongst them, activists who hope to build Israeli settlements inside Gaza.
There are many more Israelis who support this deal than who oppose it, but protesters like these from the extreme right wing have the chance of causing real disruption to the agreement.
Many here are just teenagers, but they have support from far-right politicians at the heart of Israel's government. The families of a handful of hostages and some dead Israeli soldiers also oppose the deal. Gabrielle lives near Gaza and was injured on October the 7th.
This deal would bring Israeli hostages back to their families. Why would you want to stand against it?
No trust in terror. You cannot trust these monsters that killed and raped.
What's the alternative to some kind of negotiation? You just sacrifice the hostages? You keep destroying Gaza even more?
No, we stop the humanitarian thing. We stop the water, we stop the fuel, we stop the internet, we stop everything, the water, until they bring them back.
It's hard to imagine how more pain could be inflicted on Gaza. Amid so much suffering, there is now hope on both sides of this brutal conflict. but it's a fragile hope that's steeped in blood.
Well, joining me now is Nomi Bar-Yaakov, an international peace negotiator with decades of experience in conflict management. Nomi, the Americans seem very confident. Are you as optimistic as they are?
I'm fairly confident that the deal will start. The ceasefire will start on Sunday, the 19th. But I'm very sceptical about the implementation and how long the ceasefire will last. Last time it lasted 7 days, and I hope it will last through 3 phases. But I think there is an awful lot to be overcome and plenty of opportunity for breaches. And the question is, will the implementation mechanism, the monitoring mechanism work? Will there be good faith by the parties? Yeah. Lots of questions.
Well, yeah, and the biggest questions, I guess, after phase 1, in phase 2, once the hostages are released, Netanyahu will be under pressure to resume the war and finish the job that he set out, which hasn't been completed, has it?
Yes, well, you're already sort of jumping, you've sort of there past 42 days. I'm quite sceptical of even how the 42 days will go. The first phase is 42 with the really drips and drabs, the 3 hostages to be released once a week, and with a very large number in the last week. So that's after 5 weeks. I hope that we will get there, but I would not be surprised if the timing sort of extends. I think the big question really is, will President-elect Donald Trump continue to exercise the leverage that he has been and force Netanyahu's hand? And I'm pretty confident that Qatar and Egypt will keep an eye on Hamas.
Right, and we'll come back to Trump in a minute, who, of course, claimed credit for this deal. But does this deal represent a victory for Netanyahu, given his stated aim originally was to destroy Hamas?
I don't think it's any victory for anyone here. I think you've got many hostages dead. Many bodies have returned. Many bodies will return, and they cannot. No one can claim victory here. I think it's been a total and utter catastrophe. 47,000 Palestinian dead, at least. Many buried under the rubble. The whole strip has been destroyed.
More than 60% of buildings destroyed.
I think more than 80% in the north, and I think it's going to take decades to rebuild. And I think, there's definitely no victory for anyone.
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump, who obviously comes in on Monday. He's claiming credit for this deal. Is there some truth to that, do you think?
Yes, absolutely, because this deal was on the table in May and could have been agreed in May had President Biden used the same leverage that President Trump has exercised now. President Trump sent his special envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, to deliver a message on the holy day to the Jews, the Sabbath, to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and basically said, forget all your red lines, Mr. Prime Minister. You need to sign the dotted line. This is what the President wants. And this is what the Prime Minister did.
So beyond that, what do you think a Trump presidency, a second presidency, will mean for the Middle East?
I don't think anyone knows. I don't think that Donald Trump knows himself. And I think we all need to brace for what may happen. He's rather unpredictable. He's transactional. He doesn't really read very much. He's not particularly knowledgeable in the Middle East. And I don't know that it's necessarily clear who he's going to listen to. He tends to listen to the last person who whispers in his ear.
Nomi Bar-Yaakov, thanks very much for coming in. Well, earlier I spoke to Antoine Renard from the World Food Programme. He's currently in Gaza. And I began by asking him if celebrations at the news of the ceasefire were curtailed by the overnight violence.
No, in fact, today, and we met a number of people, and you can sense within Gaza, I'm currently in Deir el-Baila, in south-central Gaza, there's a profound sense of relief and especially hope related to the ceasefire that, let's say, it's looming in. There is one woman that I've met, Naima. The first thing that she said, I want to come back to my land in the north. She wants to go back to Bet Layoun. So this is more, let's say, a hope message that you hear from people on the ground.
And yet, even after the ceasefire was announced, there was still violence. It was quite a bloody night, wasn't it?
The challenge that you have is that at the end of any conflict, and when you're coming to a ceasefire, the last few days are always, quite challenging.
But people must still be fearful because, they're daily risking their lives so close to peace, and yet they must fear that any moment they could be killed.
But that's a challenge that we've been having for the last 15 months. And I think that's why we've always been saying that the ceasefire has been long overdue. And that's why now we need actually to stand and make sure that we are, coping with what is their hope. And I think that's why we need to ensure that we are moving forward.
There is now expected to be a surge in aid going in, isn't there? Is that what you're expecting? Are you sort of waiting for this great arrival and of much needed supplies, really?
I mean, for us, and this has been a request, let's say, for now 15 months into this conflict, we've always been asking to make sure that we can run our program at the scales that is required. I look at the World Food Program, we're supposed to serve 1.1 million people. UNRWA is the same type of assistance and the same level and scale. So for us that, the ceasefire is actually an opportunity for us to reach the scale and a number of people that really require access to basic services, and especially in our case, food assistance. When I look at July and August, we were having on average 200 trucks. That was commercial and humanitarian assistance. And then we face in course of September, I would say till December, major challenges related to ensure still the level that is required to actually sustain basic food assistance into the Strip.
I mean, Israel has denied restricting aid going in, but do you think they're fulfilling their legal obligations or not?
For us, the challenge we have, and we've been systematically raising this, we've been advocating for a number of months to have more crossings. But in fact, it's not sufficient, the idea of just crossings. They need to be reliable, they need to be sustained. And then the second challenge that we have is also within Gaza, to make sure that we are not being attacked and looted. And that has been a combination of sustained, predictable crossings, and then as well to make sure that the assistance within Gaza is actually reaching the population.
And that's armed gangs and Palestinians looting.
Correct, and that's the challenge that we have, is that the law and order has been a systematically priority for us to ensure that as humanitarian, we can actually have, being on our side, the food assistance, but for any humanitarian to keep medicals up and running, to make sure that the water is coming, is actually to prevent that any of the different corridors are not able through the crossings because we're just being looted inside.
Antoine Renard, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks to you.